So this is part of a series that Outdoor Arts UK is running. I'm Angus, Director of Outdoor Arts UK, and it's called Funding Focus, and it's been supported by Arts Fundraising Philanthropy, which is part of Cause 4. They have supported us to do some events up and down the country. This is the fourth and final one, actually, we're doing. And the reason we're doing it is obviously in these lean times that we live in. A lot of the conversations around funding are very much prevaricated around Arts Council England, Arts Council Wales as well, and those large funding bodies, which, as we know, are hugely oversubscribed. And so we just wanted to make sure we had a chance to have some conversations about alternative viewpoints. So kind of in the nicest possible way, at all of these events, we've not asked the Arts Council to take part. They're through. So, oh God, not us again. I get that. If you do want the Arts Council, they will be doing a different event in Great Yarmouth on Sunday morning breakfast. So we will then, we've actually got Jen, head of Combined Arts, going to join us.
When's that during?
Out There Festival. So
2 weekends away.
2 weekends away.
Yeah.
Tarriga in between. What's going on? So these, and what we've done in each festival, we've asked the festival director or representative to talk a little bit about how the festival is funded, and particularly to look beyond, oh, we're an NPO, or we get this from the Arts Council, to talk about every one of them is a kind of patchwork. Is that the fair word to use? And then we've asked people with some kind of local interest. Now, this is not about we're going to give you 20 answers. It's simply to show alternative routes. So we have Nesta from Back to Ours, and we have Kath from Hull City Council, just to talk about their work. But I'm not asking you to say you need to fill in this form and do this. We're just about how you work. And actually, just what's interesting is we've then got these different pictures as we've gone around the country, and we will put them all together in video. You have editorial approval. We've had a business improvement district talking about that when we were in Winchester. We've had a housing trust when we were in Greenwich talking about Peabody's relationship with the GDIF festival. So we're just trying to put together some of those different ways. And then a thing that has been coming up is how can we be more philanthropic? How can we ask people directly for cash? And I have to say, when we sort of get to that bit, the room goes, oh, we don't want to do that, we hate that, it's awful. But actually, when we were in Hat Fair, one of our guests there said, we're in Hat Fair, you're all asking all the time. Literally, you're saying, put cash in here. So it's about what we do with that and how we can perhaps formalise that. But I'm not going to say we're going to sort out all your funding issues today. We'll have a jolly good go at tackling some of them. Does that sound kind of fair? So what I've asked is each of our guests to give us about 10 minutes, no PowerPoint, just a little bit of a
So just a bit of clarity, you said you've had a housing trust. What do you mean you've had?
When we were at one of our previous events.
They attended, or?
They were one of the speakers. So that was the Peabody Trust,
right,
who work in Thamesmead, which is just outside of the main bit of Greenwich. And they host certain parts of the programme there,
right,
so that the programme reaches into that community. And it's also it's interesting, it's a housing trust. Obviously, its main purpose is to provide housing and a good community, but they very much understand that culture is part of that, as they're building, but also as they're then programming within it. So they were interesting. But as I say, we'll put all of these together in a bit of a video to give a broader picture. And we'll have a different picture here from Hull today, so that's great. So what I've asked people to do is to give about 10 minutes, just a sort of overview of their organisation, how they work, their relationship with culture, with funding, any other nuggets, and then we'll just kind of, I think I'll do a go around the room. It would be great to know who's here, but people may be too late, which is completely fine, so let's hold on that. And then I always say we'll kind of break out into smaller group discussions. I have to say on all of the 3 events so far, we've never managed to do that. We've just stayed as one big group. So we'll just take a view on which way to go. I think we should always respond to the room. Are you going to need to run a festival?
It depends on whether or not I look at my phone.
Okay. This is good.
Well, actually, I'm resisting it, so I'd like to be here for a little while.
That's lovely. In the room, either way.
Fine.
I have to say, you're absolutely right, because Bradley was going exactly the same way. Oh. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
made that mistake yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. But if we go along, if we do it in this order, is that cool? So we'll start with Mikey.
Yeah.
Then we'll have Nesta, and then we'll have Kath.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mikey, thank you.
Mikey Martin's the Artistic Director and CEO of Freedom Festival Arts Trust, which is the independent charitable trust behind Freedom Festival. And some of you will know, the local people will know, we also do a new festival now under Wynne. So we have done 2 editions of a new event called The Awakening. I'm just putting a bit of context to that because I think when people look at a festival like ours, they see the festival, of course, that's the big tip of the iceberg that everyone sees, but we are an arts organisation who commission art. A lot we produce in partnership with many other people. We support a lot of artists however best we can. It might be a mentor relationship, maybe pointing them towards funding, maybe introducing them to other potential sources of support, nationally and internationally. We do a lot of participatory projects always led by an artistic frame. I'll come back to that maybe, or maybe question that, because I do have a particular way of working in terms of engagement and different types of. So we're not a festival that just brings in work and plonks it on the street. I don't know what the percentage of that would be. We do import lots of work, but we commission and produce a lot of our own work as well. And I say that because that does affect how we can be funded, and it really shifts that, as you say, the kind of diversity of income streams. If we were just to put on loads of work, we would probably just be relying on our arts. I think our Arts Council NPO would probably be less. So we are a regularly funded Arts Council national portfolio organisation. That makes up about 28% of our income, 28-30%. So that's the biggest regular funding we have annually. Second to that is from the City Council. We get a very generous investment from the City Council every year. That would be about 23-22% be there. Our third funder, interestingly, the next biggest funder is the University of Hull. That relationship is increasingly interesting, and one I would advise anyone in the creative industry to think about. Where does arts and creativity sit in an academic institution in terms of research, in terms of engaging students, in terms of artists working with academics to find new forms of practice? That tends to be more, our engagement with the university tends to be in the realm of social justice projects with looking at social justice, environmental topics, some work around sound, immersive sound. So it's quite specific. And what I would say about the way that we work outside of that core funding is everything outside of that is artist-led. And what I mean by that is it is led by the intention that we are supporting artists to make a piece of work. If I have a relationship with artists who want to do a lot of work around immersive audio in public space, then I will be looking for partnerships and support for that particular strand of work. I won't say what, you see what I mean? It's what I mean by artist-led. So then I look around and go, okay, well, the university's a lot of work around audio. Maybe I can get them to invest in a project. Maybe the artist just needs time. Maybe it's not money. So I like to think that that's our kind of makeup. There's the core funding, and then everything beyond that needs to be led by the artistic idea, because at the end of the day, what our purpose is as an organisation primarily is to deliver brilliant artistic projects to our audiences. Then it gets a bit more complicated, unfortunately. It's in those byproducts of things. We put on a big festival, therefore we have a huge economic impact on this city. Great. That's great, but that to me is a byproduct. It's not the intention of what we do. Our intention is we're an arts organisation who want to bring the most interesting and diverse and extraordinary work to the people of Hull. So then that dictates where we look for other funding. So we are also part of the largest transnational cooperation network funded by Creative Europe called the In Situ Network, which is a partnership of 17, 18 festivals from here to Kosovo to Denmark to France, and we're 2 UK partners in the network. There's Freedom Festival and Norfolk and Norwich Festival. That is a fantastic network funded by Creative Europe. I think it's on its 6th cycle. It will about to be, so that's 4-year funding from Creative Europe. It's brilliant because what In Situ does is it focuses entirely, quite entirely, but it focuses on helping artists find the space to develop ideas. It's not a subsidised touring network. Yes, we commission work, but what we do in that network is we have residencies, we have hot houses where we bring artists together from all over Europe and they develop ideas. So we try and support artists to develop ideas, so then when the ideas are rigorous enough, it will be easy to find production money and a tour, because that idea will be so well developed. So in situ is a very interesting network in that respect. That then in turn brings in a little subsidy into some of the programming. We have a company in this program called Via Berlin. There's a commission you'll see in public space, on art speak. You go out Humber Street, you turn right, you go just before you get to the footbridge, you'll see these cabins on your right hand side. There's a project called Invisible City. That's a commission which has been supported by Creative Europe, and I urge you all to do it. It's beautiful. So there's bits of subsidy coming into the artistic programme, so that's another way of income, but again, led by the projects we want to make. And then I spend a lot of time travelling to find the best work for the programme, but also developing relationships with people like the Institute Ramon Llull, who support artists from Catalonia to come to the UK. Working with the Dutch Performing Arts Foundation by developing relationships with, these are cultural foundation embassies that they will subsidise the travel and maybe some of the on-cost accommodation or subsistence of artists. So again, it's subsidising the real cost of the festival. So our festival on paper costs this, but there's a kind of invisible money coming in here, which means I don't pay for the travel of a collection of Dutch artists, Catalan artists. This year we're also working with Flemish circus companies. 3 out of 4 of them have had their travel subsidised by a wonderfully titled Belgian fund called the Brexit Adjustment Reserve. Yeah, which is for Belgian artists to continue to have relationships with the UK arts institutions.
And is that BAR?
I don't know, it's got like the logo is bio, so I don't know what they got a logo.
Good, they've got right.
Which is ridiculous.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm
okay,
but anyway, so that's kind of the makeup. I think that's the bulk of it. Do we ask people for money? The first time ever this year, we're trying a couple of different things. I actually, in a former life, was a street performer, so I'm quite happy to ask people for money. So we're trying something at the moment with some of the outdoor programme, but only 1 or 2 things. We put a pay what you can ticketed system on it. And it's been really interesting to monitor it, because we can see it absolutely exactly what's happening, and we gave options of how much people can pay. That's been very interesting.
What's your intelligence on it? I'm curious.
It's 50-50.
Yeah.
0.
Yeah.
Between 0 and £10.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact thing.
No,
There's a lot of
cheap.
people on Fiverr. It feels odd because we present this festival for such a long time with such a massive amount of work for free that people expect it for free. They think they're the council. They don't know, So it's easy for us to go, well, the council should put this on for free. We're an independent organisation supported by the council and many, many, many other people. So to suddenly start putting any kind of ticketed work on, it's been quite tricky. So we've also developed an indoor programme, trying to eke out an indoor programme. That is not a profit-making exercise. That is about having a well-rounded artistic programme that has indoor work and outdoor work, because we're trying to create one of the most exciting festivals in the world, not just a local thing. You have to have like a shade of artistic content. So there is a little bit of ticketing income as well, and there's a tiny bit of income in bars and catering. We don't want too many bars because we want loads of families, we want loads of kids and older people. We don't want a boozy festival. So we're a bit of a nightmare in terms of that mix. But I think the most interesting part of all of that, whatever that pie chart looks like, is this thing around the participatory projects, the commissioning. We commission average £60,000 to £80,000 worth of work every year with artists. That might be a piece that's coming now, or it might be one for the following year. But I think that part of our income, which probably is 10-20% of the entire budget, it's always artist-led, because it's led by an idea or a project, and if that means we need to go and find some partners to work with children in schools around this project, then we'll find funding in that realm. If it means we're going to go and work in particular neighbourhoods or with teenagers or with old people or with migrant communities, we can find bits of support in that realm. So I think there's little pockets of support out there, but I think the most important thing I would say is if your project and your idea is rigorous enough, it will find bits of support, but don't expect loads of money in those realms. The core money's over here, and it's this spread. I feel like I've missed something in the middle, I don't know, but yeah.
I was trying to do the percentage, I don't think we got to 100, but we were close.
Yeah, probably not. That's why I'll probably be in a deficit.
We saw it here, we saw it. My thought, I kind of just want to, just having been through this series, but also my going around the country, one of my great privileges is seeing festivals up and down the country and internationally, is it's quite interesting that what's come up is this thing about the paying. Is the other side of that, of saying to our audiences who we love, and we really reach out to the ones who don't buy theatre tickets because they can't afford them or they're not going to have it, but actually saying there is also a value to this. It isn't
really important. Yeah.
And just having some way of explaining that. And the opportunity to give is something that does come up. Is with a forever I was at Bartholomew Fair, which is in the City of London, and it's not a busking festival and it's not intended to be. But Joanne Catalan was absolutely overwhelmed by people trying to give him money. And it was just quite interesting to be reminded of that. Yeah. Because we were in the city, I was thinking probably quite a lot of money as well. It'd be interesting to see what that is. But that desire to give, but the option not to, I think is quite a good.
It's the conversation. It's changing the conversation because we've got a particular context here in Hull, since 2017 particularly. We had the fantastic City of Culture year and big stuff in 16 leading into it. And so much of that year was delivered for free that the expectation in the city is pretty high. And so, we don't have those kind of budgets in the city. We're talking millions and millions and millions of pounds. And we still have an expectation from certain people, and that's fine. You learn very quickly, you can't please everybody. And there's always that expectation. But to change the conversation now, I think is an interesting thing we're trying to look at. So the pay what you can system as well. Then we try to put contactless donation points like you get in museums, but we are a small team delivering a hell of a lot of programs and these big events, and the machines aren't working properly, and so we're trying stuff out, I really want to have that conversation with the audience, but I also find it really hard because someone a very popular ex-local BBC radio DJ who was a bit drunk the other night, had a right go at me about something, and he said, why don't you tell people about how much it costs? I went, really? You want me to go onto the radio and tell people that this festival costs £500,000 while they're worried? So how do you begin a dialogue? I'm talking about a festival, I'm sorry, it's every context of radio, but how do you begin a dialogue about the cost of art and creativity in a situation like this, in a city where people are really struggling? How do I tell people about this festival? £500,000, that's just the production, the artistic costs. That's not the staff, that's not the marketing, that's the other bit, the 100%. It's it's a huge amount of money, and people who come to the festival do not think that show costs 25 grand. And if you told them that, they go, well, I can buy something cheaper.
Though, I have to say there is a pattern. Your colleague from the City Council was there in the Minster saying this.
Yeah.
We had this wonderful one day, didn't we, in Milton Keynes, the local council saying, this time is the time to invest more in art and culture, not less, because people have less. And I've been hearing that quite strongly, and it's quite good to have that coming. I know it's a hard one for some people to take, and you'll always get the dissenting view, and that's absolutely valid and it's fair. But I've been impressed, and there are often quite political statements about, well, our education system, and certainly the cultural side of that is being run down, while I hope so, actually we need to invest in something to improve people's lives, because we can. So I'm not saying I'm buoyant, but I'm pleased to hear that echoing a little bit, if I may say so. That's very helpful. Thank you, Mikey.
My pleasure. Yeah.
So we mentioned what came out of City of Culture. Should we move on to Nesta?
Yeah.
A little bit about. Well, you're all right. Do you want your coffee?
Everyone, I'm Nesta from Back to Hours. I'm producer and company manager there. I've been there since 2018. Previously, I worked with Mikey at Sheehan Festival for many years.
Didn't go far.
Yeah, so a lot of what I've learned really about fundraising has come from Freedom. So thanks.
Back to you as well. What is back to us? I don't think there's
No,
not people
so
in
that's
that
where I was going
yet.
to start. Yeah, I've got some notes, so excuse me if I refer back to those. I'm a bit rusty because I've got a toddler who wakes up at 5 in the morning, so I'm knackered. But basically, I thought I'd start by talking a little bit about what Back to Ours is, because I think it's quite a unique organisation. We've been on quite a unique journey. And then give you sort of an overview of our funding strategy at the moment, and then talk a little bit about my approach to fundraising. So, Back to Ours is an Arts Council NPO organisation now, but previous to that, it started life in 2017 during our City Culture Year as an event within the 2017 programme. So Louise Yates, our now director, was producer of 2017, and she had this idea to engage people in the sort of outskirts, so not in the city centre, to engage people that don't normally engage in the arts. She wanted to take work to them, so she wanted to present things, really amazing quality things, right on people's doorsteps. So she set up a network of community venues, so church halls, community centres, school gyms, working men's clubs, all of the places that you least expect to see an amazing circus company come straight from the Sydney Opera House into a school on Orchard Park, for instance. So that Louise gave birth to her first festival during that year, in sort of school holidays, in half term, over the summer, things like that. And towards the end of 2017, Hull, or a bigger charity in Hull called Goodwin Development Trust, bid for a pot of money from the Arts Council called Creative People and Places. So that money is given to towns and cities throughout the UK. I think there are 33 projects with that funding at the moment. But they're aimed at places with low levels of arts engagement, basically. So at the time, Hull was seen as a city that had a very low level of arts engagement. Goodwin Development Trust got the money, and Louise got the job as director of that project and took her concept of Back to Ours to Goodwin and ran the CPP project as Back to Ours with the same names that it had in 2017 to bring amazing work right to people's doorsteps. They didn't have to travel to come and see. We were basically trying to break down the barriers to arts engagement. And a big part of being a CPP organisation is research and validation. So we were trying to research what the barriers to arts engagement were so that we can work out how to overcome them. And it's a lot of work. We've evaluated absolutely everything that we've done. We've done loads of testing and ticketing, whether people turn up for a free event, whether they want to pay a really low level amount, whether we do pay what we feel. We've done a lot of research on that. And we concluded that people wanted to pay for it, basically. So we ran for 5 years as a CPP project, and quickly realised that we wanted to carry on at the end of that life and become an Arts Council NPO, an organisation, a charity in our own right. So we set up our very own charity, Back to Ours Arts Limited, before the end of our CPP journey, so we could start fundraising through that charity and sort of build up relationships with grants and trusts and other grant givers before we finished as a CPP. Because we knew that obviously you can't rely on one funder to carry you through. So we built a really nice relationship with Esme Fairbairn Foundation. They now still fund us. We've got another 3-year agreement with them. We work really closely with the lottery. They've given us a big grant for a project on Ramsgate Estate. We have a unit in a shopping centre up there called Ramsgate Chat, and it's basically a space where people can come in, first and foremost, just chat about anything, what's going on in their lives, the weather, and also take part in arts activities if they want to. So we have exhibitions in there, we have craft, we have knitting, photography, all kinds of things. And so then on the 1st of April this year we became an Arts Council NPO officially. That represents at the moment about 50% of our income. So So we want to work to reduce that over the next few years. So as I said, we still have a good relationship with the Fairbairn Foundation, with the lottery, and we're applying to a couple of other trusts and foundations at the moment. We should find out about one next week to help us top up our budget. Like a lot of organisations that applied for an MPO this year, we didn't get the money that we asked for. So we've got a shortfall of over 100k, which is a big fundraising target for this year. But we're about 80% of the way there. And the interesting thing about that is that 80%, none of it has come from Arts Fundraising. It's the majority, but it's all from health and wellbeing funds, cost of living crisis money, winter warmth grants. So we're lucky in a sense that we have our permanent space up at Branston Chat Shop, which is a registered warm space, and people who come in there, take part in arts activities. So we've been able to fundraise money to enhance our programme of art within there, but at the same time giving out electric blankets and making sure people have got any food to eat. So there's a separate debate there, I think, about whether arts organisations shouldn't be doing that. But it works for us, and it works with our audiences. So obviously we engage with audiences that don't generally engage in the arts. And sometimes that can mean we come across a lot of vulnerable people, and in order to build that relationship and build up trust with them, it's a non-pressure way for them to engage with us. Hopefully get something out of it and feel better for engaging with us, but at the same time they can get some advice, they can get a food voucher, they can get an electric blanket for freezing. So that's where we're at the moment. And there are also other little ways that we've managed to raise extra cash. Obviously we're partners with Hull City Council, but we also work with local authority in other ways. So we run an outdoor winter parade every year in 4 community areas of the city of 4 nights, and through engaging with local people, we quickly cottoned on to the fact that local councillors have budget for each area that they work in. So we've been able to tap into some of that money to help pay for the parade. It's not massive amounts, but it all helps. It soon adds up. So that's basically where we are. Remember, the other sort of luxury that we've got as a new charity is that we now have a board of trustees. Previously, we've not had that. And we're hoping to build up a really strong board that can help us with fundraising, because we want to look at other areas that we've not tapped into before, like corporate sponsorship. I think it's difficult with our audiences to find a business that fits with our sort of ethos and projects that we run. They're not always big, super shiny, things that businesses may want to sponsor. So we've very carefully selected a couple of businesses that we're going to approach for some sponsorship over the next year, and we're hoping that our board as well will help us develop sort of a lower level business building scheme. And we'll utilise their contacts and their skills to help us bring a bit of cash that way.
Nesta, can I just ask you a bit about what's your relationship with artists? How do artists come your way? Do they come directly, or is it through other programmes? How does that work?
A bit of both. So when we were a CPP organisation, we commissioned a lot of new work.
Yeah.
But the work is always with the core aim to engage new audiences in arts and culture. And some artists found it difficult thing to get their head around that, because we were sort of giving them a blank canvas and saying, here's some money. Otherwise, it's very much we decide. We work with a group of hub members, we call them, they're all volunteers, and they help us programme, basically. So we consult with them about what they might want to see in their area. We take a lot of them to the festival so they can see loads of work there, and if they like something, then we try and bring it back to Hull as much as we can. So it's sort of, in a way, it's down to them really. We try and show them as much new work as we can to inspire them and see what they'd like to see.
And if an artist has a great project, do they come to you, or is there a call out?
Yeah, we do an artist commission every year with our hub members. They've just commissioned a dance project that they want to work with for this year. But at the moment we only do one a year, because we don't have much budget to do much more than that. But it's something that we would like to grow in the future. But yeah, generally artists approach us, and if we think we like it, we'll present it to the hub members. We invite artists to come and speak to our hub members on a regular basis and show them what we do. We try and pay artists for their time when we do that. And that's how sort of the route that they get to us with, really.
It's just interesting hearing that so strongly audience or you know, led, and Mikey, you're talking about artist led as well. You know, there's it's not a clash, but it's a slightly different focusing, perhaps.
When I talk about it, I kind of lean that way too much because we've got 260 people directly performing in projects over this weekend, so we do a lot of work with communities. And what I was going to say as well is it's all about context, right? All these meetings around the country we're doing, we work together quite a lot in terms of audience development. We quite often get criticised for not doing enough work in neighbourhoods and communities. And I say to people all the time, we hold the space in the city centre. We do work with people from all over the city and all over the region, East Riding, North East Links and participation projects. There's a big project today with 140 people making an opera in about 4 hours, which will be chaos at the stage of the dawn later on today. But we've worked for years with Back to Hours because what I really love about this context of whole is they're doing this beautiful work in neighbourhoods and communities. I saw a meal last night. I see these hub members who first, I'm sure I show myself, over the years I've seen them, now they tell me
They've got very strong opinions.
They are, and of course they do, of course they bloody do, of course they know. But we did a whole thing with circus for years. So Lou was programming lots of contemporary circus into schools and half terms, as Nesta said. And then we were programming contemporary circus into Freedom Festival. And then we were sharing audiences when they were bringing audiences to Freedom Festival. So we were developing audience through art form again. So again, I would say that's kind of artist-led in the sense that it wasn't by chance, it was strategic targeting. So we worked together really well in that way. And we sometimes do support artists together. Demos. Various things. Kind of random stuff. So we kind of commission.
I wasn't anyway trying to say hint at a divide. I just think there's different approaches there.
I didn't mean to further you were. I'm just very tired.
You're so polite Let's talk about council. Let's move on to Kath. So Kath, tell us a little bit about Hull's relationship, well, with these two organisations, but beyond that would be great. There's more. Thank you.
So I'm Kath in Hague. I am new in post, about 7 months now. I'm the head of Culture Place in the City Centre, obviously at Hull. Prior to that, I was in Kirklees in West Yorkshire for about 9 years. So most diverse local authority in West Yorkshire. Significantly larger in population, significantly, I would say, more challenged in terms of some of the community tensions that happen in West Yorkshire. The district of Joe Cox and various different things, so it was a real challenge. And then prior to that, I was in Plymouth City Council. And I think it's a quick canter before that. I used to joke about not having a proper job until I was early 30, because prior to that was that kind of trying to do stuff. Live out was my big thing, so it was in lighthouses, to warehouses, to sellers of bookshops, to boxing rings in community centres in rural Dartmoor. So there's this kind of space, and I joined the council at Plymouth on a 6-month contract, which was ideal for me for 2 things. One, I had no idea how to get my hands on the shop. I really wanted to do a pop-up in the shop. And 2, I did zines. And I thought I would stay late and save myself some money. At the time, as a single mother. So it was like all these kind of things. So I think there's that point of translation and understanding. I think it's really important, and cultural production is really important. But in terms of what I do now, I think that's why, for me, the journey to a role, I have to kind of remind myself when we have this conversation that it is a significant role. And even though I keep saying it's me, I see myself as me, I also recognise the importance of this role and what it does. So in my service, I'm responsible for arts development, the Hague volunteer team, tourism, city centre investments, that's the Levelling Up team that deal with grants for regeneration, and the events team. I also have to think of the office in my head and go around, make sure I haven't missed one. It's a challenge. All local authorities are in a significant challenge. Each one is very different, is what I'm going to say to you. People often think about a council as this unified entity. They are not. I've worked in 3, they all operate massively differently. The benefit of Hull, I think, is the investment over time in culture. 2017 has done a lot to change people's views internally. It's not perfect, humans are involved, so there are systems where things fall down, but I can tell you from my experience of working and trying to not even get past or through a door to talk to procurement because they don't understand the art. The art's not the conversation anymore, it's what is the due process, what is the scenario, what's the implication, and in current times, what is the cost. But having been in 2 different authorities as well, I can see that Hull is a significant investor in culture. Whether we can, it's not in the space of growing, because growing in a declining budget is a challenge, but retaining is very much where the fight and passion is. But we need to work hard as a local authority. So we have a number of grant programmes, but we need to be better about open and transparency with them. So we've got grants to MPOs, and then we also have grants to non-MPOs. So we want to kind of shift how other organisations support that ecology. But for me, it's like looking at that whole ecology. So there's grants to MPOs, smaller organisations, and there is an artist grant programme. But we haven't kind of shifted into the digital space, which I find fascinating. So we need to better communicate our offer to the sector and what it is that we're doing. Because I think a lot of the stuff is invisible and we need to be better at communicating what it is that we are doing. Because we get, in my 7 months of meeting a lot of individuals and organisations, there's been a lot of criticism thrown at the authority and at the teams that I'm responsible for, and I think half of that is because they don't know what we do. So there's a whole remit around that. I also think we are very good at telling that bigger story. So Mikey talked about the criticism that happens at the festival, but we should be doing a journey, kind of an articulation of a year of. So saying that each individual organisation is part of a system that collectively provides a cultural offer to the city and all its residents, rather than this expectation that every single organisation does every single thing, because that's not possible. And then no other sector does that happen. And no other kind of area, you recognise that a builder does that thing over there and you expect somebody else to do that over there. So there's a journey we have to go on in improving how we articulate and communicate what the cultural sector is doing. So there's a lot of evidence gathering at the moment, information gathering, 360s, which are all very challenging to do. The staff are very passionate and committed, but we need to kind of be better at that space. Also, I think what I've learned is, I think prior to the journey of going, before I landed in an authority, was this kind of really emotional, passionate, live art will save the world, we'll put this out to the lighthouse and everybody will be amazed by it. No, they won't. They won't, they really won't. There'll be a few people will, and it'll be touched, and some people will be excited by it, but there'll be a lot of people in the city that it doesn't touch. In my microcosm, the really small world that I operated in, not at all Mikey, but I think there's a thing of understanding, and when I sat on the other side of the table, I would hear artists and organisations come in, and it would be this big, big story, big narrative, full of emotion, and it would be almost overwhelming for the other side. We haven't, as a sector, haven't really thought about how we're communicating to people who, if we think about personalities, there are some personalities that have fallen into certain roles that actually find it maybe more introverted. So how are we communicating that as more of an extrovert sector to a normalised introvert community in terms of procurement or finance or other people? Because if we just land a load of emotion, they're not hearing your message, they're just dealing with that emotion that's just landed in the middle of the table. So there's something about how we communicate with different people, and I think that's what our job is in the authority, of helping that translation to other areas. The flip side is that my job is also then to translate to colleagues. We had a conversation earlier on. So we had a round table in this very room talking about how do we support the SESH to become more green. And I was quite shocked by some of the colleagues going, you should do this. And I'm like, why? Why they don't need to do anything about pushbacks, actually. That's your job. So there's something about how our role is also to challenge those internal departments about their expectation of culture. and go, actually, if we as a council are committed to carbon neutral and net zero by 2030, what are we doing in that responsibility? Because I think the skills that have been in the DIY world of collaboration is really understanding collaboration, understanding what you bring to the table, understanding that skill set and going, this is what we bring. Because everybody wants to be the cool trend person in the room. And actually, we haven't learned the skills of valuing all these different skill sets. Actually, you being an awesome procurement officer, high five, all power to you, you are amazing. If you're really good at transport, brilliant. You know, I will shine a light on you for being amazing. You don't need to be the person, the artist in the room, because we've got this a kind of skewed value in society that, you know, unless you're covered in glitter, or unless you're swinging from a trapeze, that's where your kind of value is. And I think there's a leveling of skill set, which when you're in a DIY space in collaboration, where there is no money in everybody's got a skill set of who's doing the lifting, who's shifting, who's lifting the wheelbarrow, you know, that's the space we need to be in, and I think that's the journey that we have to do to survive. And my last kind of point before we get into the broader conversation issues, but my friend runs museum service, and she's part of, if I get this right, I'll get it wrong when I have to edit it on the camera, I think it's the English Civil Museums Network. It's relatively new. It's come very much out of the recent challenges and budget. But what this group are doing, and I don't know if all museums are in because it's a separate trust, so it's a conversation to have. But what they're doing is, as local authority museums and smaller provincial museums, they're recognising they don't have the budget to all have stores, all have the same level of collections. And my friend was saying that if she'd thought she'd have a conversation now, 10 years ago, she would have been horrified by what she's saying. But they're talking about, do we all need to have the same collections? Do we have a central repository where we can draw those collections from? Because actually, they can't all keep the monies going, because the money in local authorities are going down. We've seen museums being closed in different spaces and places across the board. You know, pressures, different local authorities have different pressures. The changes to how local authorities have been funded through the business change, the business rate, massively impacted local authorities. So things like that have impacted the ability for local authorities to fund culture. And for those that don't have, because historically, business tax would be centralised and then it would be distributed. But that's all changed. So in places like Westminster or your big cities that have a lot of big business can use that money at a greater advantage. But places that don't have the same level of business asset base are in a weaker position financially. So the whole kind of structure in which case and where we're operating is shifting and changing to keep an analytical position. So it's a challenging environment we have to, but for me it's about collaboration, it's about better working, it's about understanding their needs and both challenging the sector about how we communicate with non-arts and then internally challenging those other colleagues to go, actually let's just check our expectation, because they're very stressed and they've got a lot of things to do, so they're fundamentally going, if you just do that, I don't have to do it. And I don't think it's about kind of any internal kind of, sort of, I don't want to say malice is the word, but it's not about that at all. It's just going, if you can do it, then that's one less thing I have to do, because I've got to do all this stuff. Because everybody's roles and job descriptions are getting longer and longer and longer in the public sector. So it's about sometimes understanding the faces to the servant who's actually just incredibly stressed, overworked, and that thing of people just want to be treated with respect. And I think if you go into a space with respect and kind of how can I help you and how can we work together, then you'll find better solutions. And that's the strategy that's worked in transforming how Plymouth operated, because I was the only arts person, the arts team was completely empty, and we shifted, and my last job was being part of writing the bid for the box, which is Transform the City, and we did significant things. We brought British Art Show when we didn't even have the square floor footage for the gallery, so that was a major project. And then moving into Kirklees and transforming the strategic adventure. My first thing to do in Kirklees when I landed, thinking I've gone to the land of milk and honey, of people and audiences, because in Plymouth it was like everyone was miles away. You know, it takes 80% out of the budget. You know, it's Hull is not in that space at all. But we aren't on firing on all cylinders, to use a motorcycle term.
That speaks a live artist. Kath, so if I'm an artist in Hull, or just as an example, regardless of being Hull, but for how people might approach local authorities, I'm an artist and I somehow get your email and I email you. What would you do with an artist who comes your way with a project?
Okay.
Send them over here, but apart from
Well, yeah, fundamentally, because I think local authorities, in my view, local authorities should be better at the advocacy, at the research, at the evaluation and the impact. I think if there's an artist that wants commissioning, then I think the sector, I think we need to work with the sector and understand where the gaps and skill sets are, and then we fund the cultural organisations to do that work. I don't think that's necessarily the role of the local authority. But then, my favourite one example that I always use is there was an artist, an amazing project. It was like, and it was an old friend of mine actually from Dartington, and it was a solid block of text. And his email was roguebastard@hotmail.com. I just went back to him and said, I can't do anything with this. Not only have you not communicated clearly what your idea, you're giving me all your emotion, you're giving me a kind of an to try and interpret what your thing is. And then you've got an email that I can't even forward on to anyone because it would, if it's surprisingly got through the filter system, because, a council, we have got an incredible firewall because we've got children's services. It's not, we aren't kind of distinct from the other services that we're part of. So, and it's like kind of articulate a project. Artists can't articulate projects, it's what I've always, and then I thought, you give me your idea. So, if I create the box in which your idea exists, am I the artist or are you the artist? Who's the artist here? It's that kind of, if you want to do it, I suppose that's the DIY person in me, is like take responsibility for your art, your communication of your idea, and be clear of what your ask is. If you've got that, then we can work together. If you're just going to give me an email stream of consciousness, I'll forward it to Mikey.
Totally. My favourite on the email spam was the playwright Mark Ravenhill wrote a play pre-email called Shopping and Fucking. He says, my career is ruined because I can't send emails. And every time he says, I saw your play Shopping and Fucking, just gets filtered out. So he's like totally removed from every possible email conversation at kind of any level would have a filter on it. So I think that that's interesting because I think you're giving a very good answer to people going, oh well, I wrote to the local authority and I got nothing back. Is actually you're talking about it's misdirect and you can help point in the right area.
Communication is about the receiver, it's not about the sender. We've kind of forgotten that in this kind of urgency that we all exist in. If you're landing, I get about 150 emails a day on a good day. I can get more on other days. And then I have probably back-to-back Teams meetings. So I need to have to do 2 days in one. If you want to cut through that crowd, you need to be really clear, concise, and effective in your communication. If you're giving me a load of work, just write the bottom to do this because I've got, hundreds of other emails I need to be doing. And I will literally, even if I get to it, if it's hard work, I will literally forward it to Mikey. It's that kind of space.
Or press delete.
Or delete.
Sometimes.
It's my responsibility for your idea, and I think that's where the sectors, artists get really cross with. It's like, it's not my response, it's your idea. I've got my own ideas.
That's really important what you're saying about communication, but also some people are really scared of that. Actually working with a producer or working with somebody to enable your idea to come to fruition that's audible is also a way. So don't all get scared about, oh my God, you're all going to get rejected.
No.
There are people that would work with your idea or maybe to interpret your idea if you're an artist that could be communicative.
100%, and I think it's our responsibility to have sessions to support people, to have briefings about how do you approach this and what are your ideas and these kind of things. And that's the kind of that future journey working with artists and the artist networks. They've got responsibility in this space as well as organisations. How are we supporting people to professionalise? And I think that's seen as a dirty word because it's about money and industry. It's like, we don't do that. I think it's all it's art, it's about love, it's about passion. It's like, but if you're not, coming from the DIY single mother artist, if I'm feeding my child, I'm still a pot washer that has a hobby, an expensive hobby. That's not. I don't want other people to have to do the shit that I have to do to get great, to be able to survive. If I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't be sat in council.
Right, thank you. Right, thank you to our speakers, if we may. specificity in there, but there's a lot we can take away.